Now, to understand this a bit further, what needs to go into a proposal, we also need to understand how people make decisions. Most people think that they make decisions or form opinions based on rationality. From the inside, it usually appears that our thinking, decisions, and actions are rational. We think that we use logic, evidence, and reason to make our decisions. However, from the outside, it usually appears that our thinking, decisions, and actions are irrational. In other words, we make decisions based on emotion. Never forget, human beings do things for their reasons, not your reasons, and rarely are these reasons rational. 99% of human decisions are based on emotion, and once we understand that, then it influences the language we use and the arguments we make to availing of our services. So have a look at your current marketing material. Is it all logical stuff, or is it rooted in emotion? We might have come into being a couple of million years ago, and culturally we have evolved leaps and bounds. However, our psychology is rooted in our past. Great progress has been made decoding human psychology and behavior over the past decades. The more we look for evolutionary drivers of our psychological mechanisms, the more we find them. Our most basic and primal three drivers are survival, sex, and status. And status is hugely important for high-end resi. If you look behind most thoughts, feelings, and actions, you'll find survival, sex, and status. And these go in both positive and negative directions: the drive to get them and the drive to avoid losing them. Evolutionary psychology studies have shown that there is always something driving people. For example, as I said, social status is extremely important to us as we are social animals. And as I said, that's super applicable to the high-end resi market. We arrange ourselves into groups based on status, whether we are conscious of it or not. This is hardwired into us, as we are physically safer in groups and have access to sexual partners when we are a part of a group too. So let's look up the makeup of your brain in a model that's called the Triune Brain. According to research by American neuroscientist Paul D. MacLean, our evolutionary journey had us starting out as reptiles. And some of these broke off and evolved into mammals. And finally, we evolved into human beings from our mammalian ape ancestors. Each of these evolutionary jumps can be attributed to our brain structure. When we were reptiles, all we were concerned with was survival and sex, and that's pretty much it. And this forms the core of our brain called the reptilian brain, and its drivers are food and reproduction. When we evolved into mammals, our brains developed emotions, and this put another layer on top of our reptilian brain called the mammalian brain. And finally, we evolved logic and reason when we became humans. Again, this put yet another layer on our brain, which is called the thinking or logical brain. We humans have three brains in one, and this is called the triune brain. And if that wasn't messed up enough, it gets worse. Our three brains aren't very well integrated. The older brains seem to rule the newer ones. The reptile brain is all about survival and replication, and these are our strongest drivers. Our mammal brain allows us to group together and care for each other, and these are our second strongest drivers. And the thinking brain allows us to reflect in on ourselves and create logic, and these are our weakest drivers. So the first question here is, what should we be appealing to with our marketing and sales? So no prizes for guessing the right answer. Our marketing revolves around the reptile desire for status. Our sales process then revolves around the mammalian desire for togetherness. So where does our proposal come into this? Now, I'm a big fan of the zoologist Desmond Morris's books about human evolution and human psychology. And the two books that are particularly relevant now are The Human Zoo and The Naked Ape, and I strongly suggest you read them. Here's some of what his research found. We don't make decisions logically, we make decisions unconsciously. The process of making a decision appears to be retinal, so we assume that it is. It now appears that most decisions aren't even made consciously. Instead, decisions are made on an unconscious level, then rationalized with the conscious mind. In other words, we make decisions based on basic drivers such as sex and emotion, and we justify them with logic. So if we have already completed the marketing and sales process, then the reptilian and mammalian parts of the process are also done. This means a potential client will have already decided whether or not to hire you before you send the proposal. You can't change that decision. So the only thing the proposal needs to do is to justify the decision they have already made to hiring you.